So I know, I'm a bit late on the Cherubini hype, even though it was announced like, I don't know, like a few weeks ago or something. But regardless, I'm highly excited to talk about Cherubini, considering how it honestly is just such an amazing card. But regardless, let's get right into this. So Cherubini is one of the big original Link Vrains monsters that finally is coming out in Dark Neostorm. This is 100% quite an amazing card, considering the impact it will have on the Burning Abyss archetype, and considering how generic it is, just its overall impact on the metagame and potential in other decks. So how does it do this? Why is it so incredible and generic? Well, in today's video, you're going to find out. So before we can talk about Cherubini and why it's so good, we need to first obviously know its effects. So it is a Dark Fairy Link effect monster with 500 attack. It's a Link 2 with arrows bottom left and bottom right. It requires 2 level 3 monsters and it has the following effect. Monsters this card points to cannot be destroyed by card effects. If this card on the field would be destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you can send one other card you control to the graveyard instead. You can send one level 3 monster from your deck to the graveyard, then target one Burning Abyss monster on the field. It gains attack/defense equal to the sent monster's attack/defense until the end of this turn. You can only use this effect of Cherubini, Black Angel of the Burning Abyss, once per turn. So to start, it's generic. I mean, it only requires 2 level 3 monsters. If you could make a Dante, you can make a Cherubini, and that's really great considering you have plenty of access into a rank 3 engine. I mean, for example, you have cards like Gazelle, which Salamangreat Gazelle, which can send a Spinny from your deck, and then you can special summon the Spinny in order to have a 1-card rank 3. You have Mathematician into Edge Imp Sabers, you have Galaxy Worm, you have Dangers to put themselves on the field, etc. So just in general, there are quite a lot of ways to get access to a rank 3. And obviously, Burning Abyss is focused around getting access to your Dante in order to mill some cards and then get more advantage from there. So anytime you can make a Dante, you can just make Cherubini instead. But why would we, well, make a Cherubini instead? Well, before we get to that part, we're gonna talk about the fact that it's a dark monster. And being a dark monster is actually pretty relevant for a card like Bard. It can be relevant with cards like Orcus, because you can easily play Orcus in this deck. It's not really that difficult, and I could honestly see Burning Abyss Orcus into some sort of deck. So we'll see what happens there, but just letting you know, it being a dark monster is pretty relevant. Anyways, next we have its protection clause, which basically, it can protect all BAs from their own effects, making them stay on the field under other monsters. And the reason why this is so relevant is because obviously Burning Abyss monsters have that clause where if they're on the field, they get blown up. Well, with Cherubini, if you have another monster that's not a BA, then that just means you can summon the Burning Abyss to a zone it points to instead. So this is actually incredibly relevant. One reason why is because a lot of the builds play cards like Dangers in the main. They play rank 3 turbo cards. So, and your BA monsters have always been dead in hand when you want to play those cards. And so it's never really optimal to draw too many Burning Abyss because you're usually just going to discard them or use 2 of them in order to exceed summon, which isn't nearly as much value as the other cards in the deck. So this just means your monsters can, well, get themselves on the field from their hand, and you don't have to worry about them blowing up. They can just stay on the field for once. However, this isn't the only thing this card does. It also provides just generic protection in general. So with generic protection, we have cards like, well, I mean anything. It can protect cards it points to through card destruction. And so why that's so relevant is because, well, I mean, it doesn't say specifically Burning Abyss monsters. It says any monster. So if you're trying to make a boss monster, for example, in your deck, then there are plenty of ways of protecting it. I mean, for example, Cherubini makes Beatrice much harder to kill, and it incentivizes it to be killed less, because then they're just going to go ahead and summon a Pilgrim. And if you summon Pilgrim under Cherubini, your opponent's in for a very rough time. Considering when Cherubini and Pilgrim are on the field and Pilgrim points to Cherubini, that means that Pilgrim can't be destroyed by card effects and it can't be targeted by card effects, basically making it super annoying to deal with. Not to mention its discard and draw effect will be able to get you access to more disruption if you have a card like Farfa or Alec in your hand. not only that, but if you're trying to make any other rank 3. So for example, if you're worried about destruction through a card like Thunder Dragon Titan, because obviously Thunder Dragon Titan can be annoying at times, quote unquote, but if you have Cherubini on the field, it just doesn't matter because whatever you summon can out the Titan because they can't destroy it by card effects. You have other cards like, for example, if you're trying to go for a rank 3, for example, Break Sword is a great example of this. If you're trying to summon a Break Sword and you want to target itself and a card your opponent controls, now you're not actually losing that Break Sword. Now this can be amazing at times, but this can also be terrible because if you're going to go ahead and use Break Sword effect, that just means that you might want to actually destroy the Break Sword in order to special summon 2 from your grave. However, that might not necessarily be the case and maybe you do want to keep it on field. But this is just another example of how Cherubini's protection effect is very relevant. Another thing to keep in mind is it can protect itself. So when it's protecting itself through card effect, you have to send another card on your field. And that could be anything else. And well, first off, it's kind of unfortunate that it has this effect, even though it doesn't really matter in a deck like BA because you just send Dante. It doesn't necessarily make it good, even though all the BAs float. So if you're trying to blow up a Cherubini, even though it can't protect itself, which is obviously great, sending one is not great. If you're sending a Dante, that could have also been a Beatrice. If you're sending something like Beatrice, well, I mean, it's not getting its effect, so that's not really that great. You usually want to keep your monster on field, so unless you have like either a Dante on field or just another monster that isn't really necessarily the worst thing to have on field, I'm just saying it's probably not the best thing in the world that you have to send one, even though sometimes sending one can be beneficial. For example, if you summon a Farfa to your zone and then you pass to your opponent, if they try to blow up your Cherubini, I don't know why they would, considering if they blow it up, they know the Farfa is going to die or get sent to the grave, but if they do, then you get Farfa effect because you're sending the Dante. Or if the Farfa is under Dante as material, you can send Dante and then chain block so that way your Farfa will definitely resolve. So that's another way it's good. It's technically not the worst thing that it sends one because again, it will float, but it's not really optimal to send one basically. However, that does mean in general, if you're going to have a Cherubini on field and you want to make it last for the next turn, because if you can get a Cherubini to use its effect again for another turn, then that's quite powerful, and that other effect I'll get to in a second. But if you can get its effect to resolve twice, you're in a very optimal position to win that game. So that's basically the gist of its protection effect. It can protect other monsters and it will protect itself, which is obviously very great, and it means that it's hard to deal with, and considering all your BAs float, it doesn't really matter whatsoever. But the big part, the reason why Cherubini is so powerful is because of its other effect, where it can send literally any level 3 in the game. So what does this infer? It literally means any level 3 in the game. You can send Zephyros, you can send Graph and special summon Seer from your deck. You can send Phoenix Rhino Warrior for any Fiend monster. If Dandelion was still legal in the TCG, you can go ahead and send a Dandelion to get 2 tokens. So overall, Cherubini has a lot of versatility just in general as to what it can send. But again, it's any level 3. So if you have any level 3 in the game that you want to send, you just send it. One neat interaction is if you're playing the Salamangreat engine, you can also send a Salamangreat. No matter what, you can send any Salamangreat. But then from there, you can go ahead and if you have a Gazelle in hand, you can special the Gazelle and then send something from your deck. So I think one really cool way to play the deck might actually be to play a variant where you play Cherubini and you play Salamangreats in order to turbo out more rank 3s, because again, it's a 1-card rank 3, or to turbo out Cherubini, or Cherubini makes the Gazelle live in hand as a free special summon. And then from there, Gazelle can send a Salamangreat trap from your deck to your grave, or it can send another monster to keep extending, etc. But I think the biggest interaction that will be relevant with this card is the fact that you can send Graph for Seer, or you can send Rhino Warrior for Graph for Seer, whatever you want. It doesn't really matter much unless you want to deck them more. But basically, if you do that, you have a very awesome combo to pull off. Basically, you can send Graph, special Seer from deck, then basically you link with the Cherubini and the Seer because they're both darks. You can link for a Bard. Seer effect will activate to, you probably special summon a Cherubini, so you summon a Cherubini from your grave, and then you can use Bard effect to get access to whatever you want, whether that be double Fogblade or 2 more monsters to link with the Cherubini and the 2 monsters. So yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of cool things you can do, but the fact that Cherubini is a 1-card Bard and it gets you that much advantage is kind of ridiculous. I don't see BA sticking to the Sekka's Light variant after Cherubini comes out. And the reason why I say that is because you just get so much advantage by playing Bard with Cherubini. And then the Dante will mill more Phantom Knight cards, so I do not see this deck playing Sekka's Light after this. There might be some builds that still want to go second, but Cherubini is more optimal when you can be able to use it for Bard because Bard is just so powerful. And just in general, even if you are playing the Sekka's Light variant, Cherubini is a Link 2. And one thing Burning Abyss has always wanted for the longest time is a Link 2. So the fact that you just have easy access to Cherubini is so magnificent because of the fact that, well, it just does so much by itself. So 100%, this card is amazing. It doesn't even lose to Veiler / Imperm because it's cost to send. It's cost to send, and then its actual effect will give it attack. And that's actually relevant to note because one thing Burning Abyss do like is having more attack points. And because all of the monsters are small, sometimes it's harder to out cards. So if you set up a Dante and then you send a card like Barbar, it will gain 1700 attack and 1000 defense, I think. I'm not sure how much defense Barbar has, but that's besides the point. So overall, Cherubini is incredible. I could see this completely changing BA and making it more relevant than before, but even making other archetypes better in the future considering how generic it is. Scrap me saying I could see this. This 100% will change the future of BA. That's how good this card is. This card is absolutely incredible. I guess Burning Abyss will never die whatsoever. But one thing I will note, the OCG isn't really doing much with BA, and maybe there's a reason for that. I have to look into that, but long story short, maybe it's not doing as well in the OCG, but that doesn't change the fact that we'll have to wait and see what happens in the TCG, considering they are two completely different card games, and Cherubini still is a really good card. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to support me further than just watching my YouTube videos, go down into the description and support me on Patreon. It helps out quite immensely. As well, if you guys want to talk to me further than just my YouTube comment section, go down into the description and join my Discord server. Thank you guys so much for watching, and with that, I hope to see you soon.